Hello spooky friends and welcome back to my channel. Today we will be discussing my very ambitious and very spooky October TBR. Hello spooky friends. It's October.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
It is spooky season. It is officially October and I am officially living my best life. / the only time I've been happy in 2020. Okay. Also, can we take a moment? Look at this mug. I am living. Coffee has never tasted better, you know what I'm saying? So I have a very lengthy and long TBR. I do this every single October. Every October I pile on anything that sounds exciting to me. And that is because October is one of those months where I do a lot of mood reading. Therefore, my TBR videos for October are known to be really long and really not practical at all, especially this year, because this year in grad school, because of COVID and everything, we actually started earlier. We took out fall break and we're cramming everything in basically to September, October, and November, because I'm pretty sure all of my classes end actually before Thanksgiving break. So October is like a really busy and hectic month, like for me in grad school. The bulk of everything is due in October and November, so but we won't talk about that. It's fine. The spooky season is worth being a little tired at night. So I have a lot of categories for this TBR. I've kind of broken it up and I'll put timestamps below just to make everything like really convenient if there is a section that you're really interested in or a section you'd rather skip. So here are the categories in no particular order. We've got dark academia, monsters, vampires, ghost stories or haunted house stories, thrillers / horror, and more atmospheric reads. All of the categories also have a mix of adult, young adult, and middle grade, so I'll make sure to tell you which is which when I am talking about the books. But okay, that's it for the intro. Let's move on with the one dark academia book that I will be reading this season. So this dark academia book actually just came out and I heard about it through my good friend Soleil. We were talking about it during one of our study sessions and she mentioned it and I immediately went out and purchased it. The power of friendship, right? And that is These Violent Delights, and this is by Micah Nemerever. I am very into dark academia, possibly a hint for the future. But I am very into dark academia right now. I genuinely cannot get enough of these books. And so I heard the premise and I thought immediately, like, this sounds so good to binge. This is about a guy named Paul, and Paul goes to a prestigious university where he meets Julian, and Julian is this very charismatic, cool guy, and he decides immediately that he needs to be his friend, but the relationship is very toxic and Julian is very cruel. So it's exploring all the dynamics between their friendship, possibly a little bit, maybe more. And it just sounds really cool. So I'm very excited to start this dark academia book sometime in October. We're keeping the categories pretty brief. So let's go ahead and move on to the couple vampire books that I have on my list. Remember, I have a lot of books on here and I don't anticipate reading all of them. They will definitely spill over to November as well, but I just got excited and put like a big pile together. So the very first one is Bram Stoker's Dracula. Look at this edition, so beautiful. I really don't know a lot about this other than this is what started it all. And I love a good vampire story. I actually used to be terrified of vampires when I was little, which is so funny because I have a totally different spin on it now and I just love them. I think they're really fun creatures to read about, I guess. Anyways, so I'm very excited to read this one. Classic. The next one I have is a Saphic retelling, and that is The Deathless Girls. And this is by Kiran and Millwood Hargrave. So that one was obviously an adult. This is going to be a YA. I love the cover. I think that the cover is so beautiful. I'm sorry, I know I say that all the time, but listen, I live for book aesthetics. I think they are gorgeous. And this is all about Dracula's wives, and it's just exploring what is really happening behind the scenes at Count Dracula's layer. So it sounds really, really cool, and I think it'll be really good. So this next one is also a YA, and I've heard about this a lot from my friend Liv from Olivia Reads a Latte. This is like one of her very favorite series, and it is The Beautiful by Rene Ahdieh. This is a book that I'm going in pretty blind to. I know that it involves like a serial killer, vampires. It takes place in the 1800s, and this all takes place also in New Orleans. So sounds pretty fun. That is it for vampires. Let's move on to the very lengthy ghost stories and haunted house pile that I have next. So let's go ahead and start with my most anticipated read, and that is Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. This might look really familiar. I put it on an earlier TBR because I was going to read this for Summerween, which is this brilliant readathon that took place the last week of August, and it's for people like me who wanted to celebrate the season early. However, my grad school started earlier, and I immediately was overwhelmed with all of the assignments that were like starting to become due and everything. And so I just didn't have time to participate, but that's okay because I will be reading this book now, and I'm very excited to get to this. So this particular book is all about a girl named Maggie, and Maggie grew up with a father who wrote all about, I think, like their month-long stay at this haunted house. And this house becomes really, really famous, and everyone asks Maggie if it's true, but she doesn't really remember what happened, and she doesn't think it happened. Like, she doesn't think it's true. However, when her father passes away, her dad leaves her this haunted house in the will. And so Maggie decides to go back there, fix it up, sell it, and kind of move on because she really hates all of her associations with this house. Enter the haunted house. She goes there, and things might potentially get a little haunted, a little spooky. I don't actually know if this is a real haunted house story or if there's something else happening behind the scenes, but Riley Sager has never let me down. I absolutely love his work, so I'm very excited to delve into Home Before Dark. Next up, I should mention this right off the bat, is City of Ghosts, and this is by Victoria Schwab. So this is going to be a reread for me, but this is a Touch of Whimsy's book club pick of the month, and I'm very excited because our friend Liv is actually going to be co-hosting with Kaylin and I, and it's gonna be really, really fun. We are also doing like a 24-hour slumber party with all of our book club members and basically anyone else who wants to participate, where we all watch Hocus Pocus together, and there's gonna be like a bingo card involved, and it's just gonna be kind of like a really fun time. And this is the book club selection that we chose. This is about Cassidy Blake, and Cassidy Blake can see ghosts, and she actually has a best friend who is also a ghost. And her parents bring her to Edinburgh because her parents, ironically, are like ghost hunters, but they're not very good. And they don't know actually that their daughter can see ghosts. While they are in Edinburgh, Cassidy Blake encounters a very, very bad ghost, and it's all about their interactions. It's very spooky, it's very creepy. I really loved it, and I'm very excited to reread it with the book club. Next is a YA, and that is The Rattled Bones, and this is by S.M. Parker. This is another one that I have been eyeing for quite a while. It was actually a gift sent to me, so thank you again so much, Lisa. This is about Ryla, and Ryla keeps seeing the mysterious message, "Find me," everywhere, and she thinks that she is being haunted, but she has no clue who is sending her this message. So it's all about her story with this ghost. That's all I know, and I don't want to know anymore. I love going into ghost stories not knowing anything, because sometimes it's a ghost story and sometimes it's something totally different, and either way, I just don't. I want to go in there like Scooby-Doo, you know, like expecting the ghosts and the monsters, but like being totally chill if it's actually something totally different. That was a horrible reference, but yeah, okay, The Rattled Bones. The next one is all about a haunted town, actually, and that is Prelude for Lost Souls, and this is by Helen Dunbar. This was a little bit of a cover buy. I saw this and I immediately picked it up in Barnes & Noble, but also it just sounds so good. So the very back says, "Every town has a story. This town has a ghost story." And apparently this town basically is famous for their psychics, their mediums, and their ghost encounters. And everything in this town is controlled by something called the Guild. And the Guild, I think they basically like help decide which mediums are special enough to enter into the Guild. Our main protagonist, Deck, actually wants nothing to do with the town or the Guild itself because his parents have passed away. And I don't think that he believes in any of this. So we're following him, we're following his interactions with his best friend who does want to become like a medium or a psychic, and this really crazy fun town where everything is haunted. Sounds really cool. And then the final ghost story I have here is Horrid, and this is by Katrina Leno. And I am so excited. So for those of you who don't know, Katrina Leno actually wrote one of my very favorite books of all time, and it is called Summer of Salt. I think that the writing in it is so beautiful, and I think Katrina Leno is so incredibly talented. So when I found out that one of my very favorite authors of all time was coming out with a ghost story, I lost it. I really want to read just this like one little bit. So this is about Jane, and Jane's father passes away, and her mother moved to Maine. So they move, it's my favorite setting because it's in New England around the autumn time, and I really am desperate to move to New England. I think that would be so fun. So she goes up with her mother to Maine, and they live in this manor, and it's called North Manor, okay? And the manor is potentially haunted, but listen to this really, really atmospheric, I guess, description. It says, as the cold New England autumn arrives and Jane settles into her new home, she finds solace in old books and memories of her dad. I mean, just that alone, I am like ready to read it, you know? But this is all about how she thinks that the new house that the curtain just moved as I was talking about a ghost story. So that's... We're just gonna move on. I'm excited to read this. Okay. Next up, let's move on to thrillers. The first is going to be obviously adult, and it is Stephen King. I actually wanted to read quite a bit of Stephen King this October, but this is the one I definitely want to read because I really want to see the movie. Actually, it was so funny. I saw a comment which made me laugh out loud, but I saw this comment on my channel, and it was saying like, how have you not seen The Shining? And I don't know if it was because I love like spooky stuff that they said that, or if it was because of course, everyone has seen The Shining, but here is the thing. My love of thrillers and really scary stuff is pretty new. I'm more of like a Halloween Town spooky cozy vibe girl. I have never liked like thrasher stuff or like really gory or bloody things. Like I don't enjoy that type of scary movie or that type of narrative. It's just too scary. I don't really listen to true crime because it happened. Like it happened in real life and it scares me. So like I get very scared from all of that stuff, but like the paranormal stuff is probably not gonna happen, right? And so like it doesn't really scare me as much. But I haven't seen The Shining because it's so scary. I know it's paranormal, but like the commercials make it look so scary with those two twin girls. Like, but yeah, I've never seen The Shining. So I really want to read this and then watch it for the first time this October, possibly for a vlog. I also saw somebody comment and say that I should start with Pet Sematary. I did not purchase that book because I've heard that that is his scariest work. However, I'm very curious. If you read a lot of Stephen King, should I start with Pet Sematary? Or is starting with this one okay? Or do you have something else that you would suggest? Because I'm open to suggestions. I've never read Stephen King before, so I'm really interested in what you guys have to think. But okay, anyways, so I definitely want to read The Shining by Stephen King. I don't know a lot going into this. I know that this is about a family and they go to stay in a hotel in the dead of winter when it's closed down, just to kind of make sure that everything is okay for this hotel. And I think the main guy, who is the dad, is a writer, and I'm pretty sure that he starts to hallucinate at this hotel. But I'm very excited to read my very first horror this Halloween. And then the last thriller I have here, it's a YA, and it is The Cheerleaders, and this is by Kara Thomas. I actually bought this I think 2 years ago because I saw Kayla talk about this for her Spookathon vlogs and I was always intrigued, even though I'm pretty sure she gave this a 3-star, but also the cover is so beautiful. The main protagonist's sister has committed suicide, but she is convinced that her sister really didn't try to kill herself. We are following a group of cheerleaders who have all passed away. They've all died mysteriously, and our main protagonist is trying to figure out what really happened. And it sounds really, really great, but also it looks really cool. Okay, you guys, that is it for my thriller and horror category. So now let's go ahead and move on to some monsters. The first book that I have here is a middle grade and it's called Small Spaces, and this is by Katherine Arden. This follows a girl named Ollie, and Ollie learns about this like strange, mysterious, kind of like a scarecrow man, but it's like a monster, through this book that she finds. And then while she's on a school trip, she starts to see that everything that she is reading is happening around her, and the school bus breaks down, and then she meets this scary scarecrow man. Next is a book I mentioned in my spooky middle grades video, and that is by Lauren Oliver, and it is The Magnificent Monsters of Cedar Street. This is about Cordelia, and Cordelia's father is actually a veterinarian for monsters, and one day her father goes missing, and so she has to try to track down her dad. I think this will be a really cozy read for October. Next, I have a YA, and this is kind of like a staple in the YA genre right now, and that is This Savage Song by Victoria Schwab. So this is about August, who is a monster but who longs to be human, and then it also follows Kate, who desires to be ruthless. So I think that Kate maybe wants a little bit of power and they become friends. So it's all about this human and monster friendship. And that's kind of all I know about it. I'm very excited. I've heard so many people say that this is amazing, so I really can't wait to read this. And then the final monster book that I have here is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I have been wanting to read this book for such a long time. I saw this edition in Barnes & Noble and I absolutely flipped out because I thought it was so beautiful. It actually has illustrations and it also has a foreword by Stephen King. Or I think it's an introduction actually by Stephen King, but I think it's gonna be so much fun to read. I think I kind of wanna vlog my experience reading Frankenstein for the first time too, just because it seems so cozy. I've heard that this is a really sad book as well, but I love that it has illustrations. I think it's gonna be really fun to read. So yeah, I'm very excited for Frankenstein. And then finally we have 2 books for the kind of like magical atmospheric category. So the first book I have here is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. So I've actually read this one before. I read this 2 years ago, but I listened to the narrator and I wasn't really connecting to the narrator's style in reading this, and so I want to go back and I want to read this one again, and then I want to read the entire series because I remember it being really atmospheric. I just wasn't really connecting to the narrator very much. But this is all about our main protagonist named Blue, and Blue meets this group of boys and they are called the Raven Boys. They're from this very prestigious private boarding school. Blue has a prophecy set on her from her family who are all psychics, and they all say that the very first person that Blue kisses and loves is destined to die. And it's just about Blue and her interactions with these boys and this magical little town. And I have a feeling that if I reread it and then binge the series, I'm going to love it. So I'm very excited. Next in this magical category, I actually have 2 books and I don't have the physical copy of either. So I will insert the picture up here. But the very first one is going to be A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. So this is an adult fantasy, and it is all about this dark academia university for adults with special talents. They are learning how to do magic, but the catch is if you fail, you die. The next one is going to be by Victoria Schwab, and it is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This is another adult book, and this follows a girl named Addie LaRue who makes a deal with the devil that she can never die. To give her this deal, she is also then cursed that no one is allowed to remember her. So everywhere she goes, people immediately forget who she is, and she has a very lonely life until one day she meets a man who remembers her. So that one sounds very atmospheric and also very, very magical. And then the next book I'm pretty sure I put actually on my September TBR, but I didn't get to it. September was a very there's a lot of things due for grad school, so I'm hoping to read more this next month, but I guess I don't know. But that is An Enchantment of Ravens, and this is by Margaret Rogerson. I was pretty excited to read this before, but then I got a comment, I think on that video, where somebody said that I would really love this because the prince that this girl is kind of falling in love with is actually the Prince of Autumn or something. He's like the Fairy of Autumn. So I'm really, really desperate to read this. This is going to be one of the very first books that I reach for, and I'm very excited. But anyways, this is about Isabel, and Isabel is a painter, and she paints, I think, either the king or the prince of the fairies, but she is taken down, I guess, against her will to be a prisoner of the fairies because she creates this very, very bad no-no in the fairy realm, which is she paints the prince or the king with human emotion. And it's just about her tale with the fairies, I think, in autumn, and with specifically the prince or king of autumn or something like that. And it sounds really, really good. I'm very excited. It's also really short, so I think it's gonna be really good. But yeah. Well, you guys, that is it for my very, very lengthy October TBR. Really, this should be October and November. There's absolutely no way I'm gonna read all of these. I just wanted a really big list that I could pick from as the month went on, and I am so excited. I don't know if anybody else is like this, but the time that I get the most excited to read is now. It is during the spooky, cozier months when it's cold outside, when I'm just living in sweaters, and I always have a cup of hot coffee. But please tell me what you guys are reading this spooky season. That is it for now, book lovers. So until next time, you guys, keep your head in the clouds and your heart in a book, and I will talk to you very soon. Stay spooky.